Do not adjust your digital device. What you are about to see and hear may shock and appall you. Join our hosts as they encounter countless thrills, spills, chills, and hilarity as they explore the very weirdest in pop culture. The following media is so strange, so beyond the scope of what is normal, it will make you ask the question, why does this exist? Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Why Does This Exist? I'm Chris.
And I'm Rob.
And today we will be talking about the next movie in our big installment. That's right, we are trying to see how many movies with the title Big we can get away with before we run out of titles with the title Big, with the word Big in it. So we've been doing this. Kind of happened by accident. First we did The Big Short. I'm sorry, not The Big Short. We did The Big Hit. We did The Big Hit, The Big Lebowski, and this is a cult classic that is just one of the best 80s movies that you could possibly get your hands on. This is Big Trouble in Little China that we're going to be doing tonight. And we'll keep doing this until we run out of movies with the title Big. Apparently there's 63, I think, or 68 titles according to IMDb with the word Big in it.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to get to all of them, but we're going to get...
I mean, a good portion of them we're probably not going to get to just because they're not really, like, weird or interesting.
Yeah, we're going to get to as many as we can before we either just say, screw it, we're tired of doing this, or we just run out of bigs.
Yeah.
And we'll probably you'll know because the last one in the saga is Big with Tom Hanks. What else would it be? But that's a little bit behind the scenes of what's going on. If you don't know what we are Why Does This Exist? We are a podcast that talks about the very weirdest in pop culture. Whether it's a movie like we're about to do, a wacky TV show like we just did a couple of weeks ago with Courage the Cowardly Dog, weird products like we will probably do down the line, or anything of that nature, anything Halloween related, you know it's coming. So, especially since we are in the spooky season of October, and we will bask in the glorious nature of the pumpkin and all of the terrors that he has of the pumpkin patch to bestow on us. And not to mention the great pumpkin who will eat you. But you can support the show in a number of ways. If you've been listening for a long time, maybe you should start giving us some money. You can do that by going over to patreon.com/whydoesthisexist. You give us as little as $1 or as much as you want, and we will let you into our Discord server where you can hang out with us and all of the other people. You can even talk to our writer, Tony. You could see what's going down the pike in the schedule. And hell, maybe you could even contribute to the podcast if you want. And maybe we'll hear out your ideas and we'll put them on the show. Or maybe we'll bring you on the show. Depends on how much you want to give, really. And who knows, maybe we'll even let you write a guest column for our Patreon, which Patreon has plenty of articles on there that Tony is constantly writing for us. He just did a really cool one on Mr. Bungle, which is music that can only be described as Prince on acid. It is really bizarre stuff. We'll definitely get to that at some point with the show, because that is some really crazy stuff, and I love it. And we'll probably bring Tony on for that, because the article is about his experience seeing Mr. Bungle live. So, you know that's a good time. You can also find us on social media, and you can even bump up the numbers on our YouTube channel by subscribing and commenting and doing all of those fancy things that the algorithm wants, because the algorithm is a bottomless pit of emptiness and despair, because that's what Google has transformed YouTube into. It's not cats videos anymore. It's just despair and emptiness and clickbait content and other things. That's the news. Here's the weather. You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge from a ragtag group of rogues. So let's get on with the goddamn show. Rob, this is one of your favorite movies of all
Yeah.
time. So why
Yeah.
don't you tell the people what the hell we're talking about?
So Big Trouble in Little China is it's a, as you said before, it's a cult classic movie from the master of cult classics, John Carpenter. Um and it really
He is the
is
king of the
truly,
cult.
yeah. It really is truly a cult classic because it did very poorly at the box office despite receiving good reviews from critics. It actually only grossed 11 million on a budget of 19 to 25 million. Um, and
There's a
actually
few
left,
interesting reasons for that, but
yeah,
continue.
it actually left John Carpenter disillusioned with Hollywood because he was actually really like, hoping this would be a big hit, and it should have been. But again, there was several reasons why it wasn't. However, it did do very well when it came out on home video. And it became like an instant cult classic when it came out on home video, and is well beloved, or much beloved even to this day. Including spawning of several video games for the Commodore 64 and various other home computers in the 1980s. And a comic book series with a crossover with Escape from New York, where Jack Burton meets Snake Plissken, and
Oh, I didn't know that they did that. That's really
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
I think it's
various,
well. I think it's funny because Jack Burton is essentially like Snake Plissken if he was an idiot.
yeah, basically. um, and actually, I think Snake Plissken met one of Kurt Russell's other characters in Captain Ron, and also a comic book series
Oh,
at
that's
one
funny.
point. So it's basically Kurt Russell was meeting himself in the comics multiple times.
Hmm.
Uh, Maybe it's a commentary on on Snake Plissken's broken psyche.
I
Anyway,
guess, or maybe there's just this whole sub universe that is now brought into.
yeah, where everyone's played by Kurt Russell.
I guess he's a
Um.
popular guy.
So anyway, the uh, like I said, Kurt Russell plays. And again, Kurt Russell was a mainstay of John Carpenter movies. He was in
Yes.
several of them, including Escape from
Let's
New
just
York,
say Big
The
Daddy
Thing.
Kurt. Let's just say Big Daddy Russell got around in John Carpenter's universe.
Yeah, he did. Um, so he plays truck driver Jack Burton, and he's best friends with Wang Chi, who is a Chinese man who owns a restaurant in Chinatown in San Francisco, or the aptly named Little China.
Yes, and might I say that Jack Burton's theme song, he drives the most appropriate trucker music of all time.
Yes.
There is the minute that I heard the song, the minute that I heard the Pork Chop Express song, which the soundtrack was written by John Carpenter as well, as he is known to do. But first of all, this became like an anthem for like a good like week and a half for me. I started like I would listen to the soundtrack to Big Trouble in Little China while I was like running in the gym because I'm
Yeah.
like I got a 5K coming up. It's my first one. I'm excited. So I've been like training for that. So like
Yeah.
I've been putting on Big Trouble in Little China soundtrack, and the minute and like I wait until the Pork Chop Express starts going to like crank up to like just jack up the speed on the treadmill.
Yeah.
So like the minute that that's going, I get in my groove and I'm like I'm going to town on this thing.
Yeah. It's
But
very
yeah,
much like a classic
every truck
80s,
driver every truck
like,
driver's theme song should be is the Pork Chop Express,
yeah.
which he is conveniently bringing pigs and pork bellies and things to go get slaughtered by all of his constituents.
Yes. Um
They're the real victims.
the pigs.
The pigs in the Pork Chop Express.
Yeah. That's true.
They had families. Some of
Now they
them
don't.
were families. Now they're dinner.
What if they were like suckling pigs? So they were basically just like baby pigs.
I mean, they could have been.
Probably
There's
was.
probably. I mean, it's Little China. There's got to be quite a few dim sum places around.
Yeah, that's true.
Dim
So
sum's
anyway,
delicious.
Jack
If you've never had dim sum, you really need to try that stuff.
Jack and dim sum's awesome. Any kind of
Yeah.
dumplings are great.
Yes. Seinfeld 4. Speaking of, continue the plot.
Oh yes. Jack Burton goes with his friend Wang to the airport to pick up Miao Yin, who is coming in from China, and a Chinese American street gang known as the Lords of Death are at the airport trying to kidnap Chinese girls because they're involved in like a human trafficking ring, basically, where they kidnap young Chinese girls and send them to a whorehouse in Chinatown, basically.
You mean the Lords of Death are the bad guys? Who knew?
Yeah. So there's a whole like, Chinese triad element going on in the movie. But so Wang Chi and Jack end up breaking up this like kidnapping attempt, and Miao Yin ends up getting kidnapped instead. So meanwhile, they also meet Gracie Law, who is a lawyer, and her name is Gracie Law.
Of course it is.
Who's basically like she's an immigration lawyer who's basically advocating for the the Chinese women that are kind of coming from China and being kidnapped.
Right.
So they decide to go to Chinatown to find the Lords of Death so they can rescue Miao Ying, and they stumble across a funeral procession, which is between the Chang Sing, who are the guys with the yellow headbands, and then the Wing Kong, which are the guys with the red headbands, who are the bad guys. So the funeral procession is happening, and all of a sudden, this street gang war like basically erupts in front of them while they're sitting in the truck, and they're going back and forth, the two gangs, when all of a sudden the three storms appear: Thunder, Rain, and Lightning, who are basically the guys that inspired Raiden in Mortal Kombat.
Yes,
they're these guys that wear these like hats over their heads and have lightning powers, basically.
Yeah, it is exactly Raiden. It's not even an inspiration; it's a direct lift.
Yeah, no,
like,
it is Mortal Kombat. Absolutely, like the developers of Mortal Kombat used the three storms to make Raiden. Basically,
yes,
it is 100%.
And yes, and the villain who we are getting to, Lo Pan, they used him as an inspiration for Shang Tsung.
Yes, so while this is all,
so you can thank this movie from Mortal Kombat, everyone.
Essentially, yeah. So while this is happening, the three storms come in and are killing all the good guys, also known as the Cheng Sing. Basically, Jack kind of like guns it through the crowd and ends up running over a guy that is dressed in like this traditional Chinese garb that is like ghostly and tall and freaky looking. And this turns out to be David Lo Pan. However, even though he runs him over, he's like completely unhurt and starts like glowing and shooting light out of his eyes and mouth. So they basically get the hell out of there, but Jack's truck ends up getting stolen. Turns out David Lo Pan, that's not really what he looks like. He's actually like this ancient crippled man in a wheelchair, but he's able to project himself as like this like ghostly image because he is this immortal curse guy. And basically what happened is the ancient curse happened. He was defeated in battle by an ancient Chinese emperor named, I'm going to butcher this, Qin Shi Huang, and basically cursed Lo Pan to be like a vampire, essentially. He's basically like the Chinese Dracula. And the only reason...
I guess that would be the best way to do it. I mean,
it's basically...
They're not like super specific as to how, as to like what deal he makes with a curse, but there's only a handful of things that you can make deals with, so it's probably a demon of some sort.
Yes. So the only way he could break this curse is by marrying a girl with green eyes and then sacrificing her to the emperor. So it just so happens that Miao Yin has green eyes. So her kidnapping is all a part of this plot by David Lo Pan to basically regain his old body and become his like, his powerful like wizard self that he once was.
Well, they do also have to stand at trial, which I wonder how many. It makes me wonder how many times this has happened where he secured a girl with green eyes and she
It's
doesn't
implied.
pass the test and she
Well,
dies.
it's implied that he has done this before and nobody has passed the test or it's not worked out.
Yeah.
So they go back to the restaurant and they meet back again with Gracie Law and Margot, who's her friend, and then Wang's friend Eddie, and then
Is
Egg
Margot's
Shen.
last name reporter or journalist by chance?
I must be. I don't know, because she is a journalist, so maybe it's like Margot News or something.
Margot News.
Margot News.
Yeah. Why not?
So they also meet Egg Shen, who's basically like this ancient. He's not really ancient. He's just an old man, but he's also like somewhat of a magician and a master of like Chinese mysticism, and he knows everything about Lopan.
I would say he's a sorcerer.
He's basically like.
It's unclear it's unclear as to how old he is, but it's like it's implied that he's older than he seems.
Yes, so because he's battled Lopan before.
Yeah,
Lopan
so
knows who he is, and he knows who Lopan is.
Yeah, so he might not be as old as Lopan, but he still might be several hundred years old.
Yes. I think it's also implied at one point that he's like technically Wang's uncle. I don't know if it's like kind of like like the Chinese term of endearment more than he actually is his like biological uncle.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's like oftentimes like wise older men are called uncle in Chinese cultures. Much like Uncle in Jackie Chan Adventures, who also happened to be Jackie Chan's actual uncle, but
which we covered several weeks ago.
Yes, of course. So going back again to Chinese lore, so basically they try to explain to Jack this whole situation. Jack just wants to get his truck back, basically.
Yeah, I mean, he's even trying, like, he immediately just uses the restaurant to just call the insurance company.
Yeah.
Like, right away, which is the right thing to do. I will say he's a responsible truck driver.
But unfortunately, it seems like his insurance is kind of like this fly-by-night insurance company that, like, basically he can't even get someone on the phone to help him, So
either that or he's, like, done this multiple times and they just don't, and, like, nobody wants to deal with him.
Yeah.
Because when he's on the phone with her, I think she is like, wait, what's your name again? And he's like, it's Jack Burton, and she's like, oh. So
yeah,
like it's not in like it's unclear as to whether or not he just has really bad insurance, which is definitely
I think it's just
possible.
Shitty insurance, honestly.
And also it would kind of fit his character that he would probably get the cheapest insurance, which is the worst insurance.
Yes, yeah. And Jack Burton is somewhat of a bumbling. He's not really like useless, but he is kind of like a doofus. And he kind of really like he comes into his own, but like he often like wins fights just by like accident in the beginning.
Yeah, he's definitely a chaotic good for sure.
Yes. He's not too bright, but he's got street smarts, I guess. He just doesn't know too much about like the whole like dynamic between the Chinese street gangs and all this mysticism and David Lopan and stuff.
He's also a bit of a perv.
Yeah, a little. He's very much like kind of like supposed to be like this like everyman that like it's just like this just American guy who's just trying to like a working class dude who's not like the brightest guy but not stupid either but kind of like bumbles
pretty macho.
Bit. Yeah,
he's basically what other people think Americans are. He's basically an American stereotype.
A little bit.
Like if you brought a picture of him to China, they would say, "Oh, that's some stupid American."
Yeah, pretty much, probably. So they decide to go to the brothel where they believe that Miao Yin's being held, so they could try to get her back. And Jack, of course, goes in and is in disguise as this like businessman who's kind of again like really over the top like doofus who's just like, oh, I've never been to a whorehouse before. This is my first time, kind of thing. Like, and he's just acting like an idiot, but he's kind of doing it on purpose to kind of throw off like the people and make them think that he's just like some stupid American businessman. Basically,
I mean, they probably get that all the time.
Yeah. Apparently, Kurt Russell also plays like basically dresses up as his character from I think I forget what the name of the movie is, but he's basically plays a used car salesman. Let me see if I could find the name of the movie real quick, because he's basically playing the exact same character when he dresses up as this businessman.
Was it also
Oh,
a John
Used
Carpenter
Cars. It was
movie?
called Used Cars, basically,
Oh,
and he
okay.
looks exactly the same as his character in Used Cars, essentially. And he's like just like this, plays a used car salesman in that. But anyway, so they kind of infiltrate this brothel. They find Miao Yin. But as they're kind of like breaking out, of course, the three storms attack because they're looking for Miao Yin too on the orders of David Lopan.
Yeah, and Miao Yin is under a spell this whole
Yes.
time by Lopan. So like she
Yeah.
can't escape, she can't talk, she can't interact. She's basically in like a Snow White state basically where she's alive but she's like sleeping and she's like dead. She's in like a death-like sleep.
Yes. So Jack and Wang end up going to this business called the Wing Kong Exchange, which ends up being like just a front. And they sneak in by the stupidest thing. Like they literally say that they're like telephone repairmen and just walk right past the guard and no one tries to stop them. Evidently, though, the rain, one of the three storms, is not.
That's how you know it. That's how you know it's a front. Where like the guys, where the security guards are just like, oh, who cares? Just go in.
Yeah, but Rain, of course, is not that stupid, and they end up getting captured and tied up. So they meet Lopan, and basically he like tells them his whole plan, and that he needs a green-eyed girl so he can marry her, then sacrifice her, and then break the curse and become immortal again, basically, and like this, young, like basically vampire, like Dracula.
And might I say that I can't see anybody playing Lopan other than James Hong.
No, James Hong was the exact choice they needed. He is the only person that could have done Lopan correctly.
Perfect. He was perfect.
Yeah.
His nuances are what makes it, and I don't even mean in his mannerisms. I mean in his, like, even his delivery. It's just there's just something like he takes these odd pauses, and it's really sinister. And his laugh is sinister and mischievous at the same time. It's almost childlike. So I don't know.
He's a very
I really enjoy. I really
devious old man. Like
yes,
and it's funny the difference between him as the old man and him as like when he's like his younger self. It's like very different the way it is. Like he like it's kind of like a little bit more dignified and more menacing when he's like in his true form. But when he's the old man, he kind of is like this like just like creepy like crypt keeper looking guy that kind of like just giggles and like has this like schemes and stuff.
Yeah.
So they end up escaping, but Gracie ends up getting captured by basically the Sasquatch. It's like implied that Lopan has like a number of like minions that are like not of this world. They're monstrous or
his underworld denizens.
Yes. So Gracie gets captured, and Lopan also finds out that Gracie also has green eyes. So basically what he intends to do is he's going to marry both Gracie and Miao Yin, and then sacrifice Gracie to become like young and immortal again, while he makes Miao Yin his actual wife. So they go back to Eggshen.
Not a bad deal.
Yeah,
I mean, Is there anything in the contract that says he can't do that?
I guess probably not. I mean, he's technically fulfilling the prophecy, so
he might have a good lawyer.
Yeah, well,
maybe
sure
not as good as
alive. Been alive.
Maybe not as good as Larry and Steve. Like let's not give him too much credit. They might not be as good as Larry and Steve.
Yeah,
who are stand-up guys, but they must be pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Ancient
I'm
lawyers.
sure he's got some money for it. He's been alive for thousands of years. He probably has like millions of dollars worth of like ancient Chinese artifacts that he could sell. So
yeah, and most lawyers are demons anyway, except Larry and Steve. So who are angels, sweet angels. But yeah, most angels are most angels are demons. Of course they are. most wouldn't that be interesting? I mean, if you met a biblically accurate angel, you might be
Yeah,
confused. You might
yeah,
think that,
yeah,
but yes, most lawyers are demons anyway, and demonic by nature. So it would stand to reason that he would be able to make that connection in the underworld.
yeah.
He also has a beholder with him, which is kind of cool. The
Yes,
missus was
that's one of
confused
his
by it.
things. Yeah, it's like, so for those who don't know, who've never played Dungeons and Dragons, and Beholder is this floating monster that has eyeballs all over it, and basically, like Lopan kind of uses it as like his eyes, basically. Like it's able to see for him. So like when they end up going back to Eggshen to regroup, and
It's his
Eggshen kind of,
security guard.
yeah, Eggshen ends up like saying, okay, we gotta go, like, if we're gonna get to Lopan, we gotta go through the underworld, basically. So they go into like this cave system where they find like this like black goop. It's like almost like the sewers, but like way more ancient. And there's like this black goop, and like they're kind of like, oh, what's that, oil? And it's like, no, it's like the lifeblood of the earth, basically.
Yeah, they go
Um,
into like the hollow earth bait for like
yeah,
a brief
essentially,
moment.
yeah. And that's where they find this thing, which it basically spots them, so Lopan knows that they're coming. But like I said, Eggshen gives them this potion, which kind of like gives them all superpowers. Essentially, it makes them like super strong and fast, and they're just better than an
And
average
also,
human.
it also gives them the gift of sight, so of some kind of sight, so they can see like supernatural things. We never really see it through their eyes, so we don't know what they're actually seeing,
Yeah,
which is one thing where I was kind of like waiting to happen that never did.
yeah,
So but I mean, I guess just assume that it gives you the magical powers that the glasses give you and They Live. Another John Carpenter flick, I
yes.
believe.
No, They
Right?
Live.
Yeah, no,
They
they
Live
live.
was They Live
No,
was
no, it is
uh
John Carpenter. I'm looking
was
at
it?
it now. Yep, it
Okay.
was John Carpenter. It
What was
is
the
two
one? There was
movies
that
after
zombie movie
this.
that the guy who did Lord of the Rings, fucking
Oh no, that's Dead Alive.
right, okay.
That's Dead Alive, also known as Brain Dead.
Yes.
That's a crazy movie. It's
I've not
really
seen that
bizarre.
movie.
You would be shocked if you knew that this was the same, if this was Peter Jackson.
Yeah.
If someone told you in whatever year it came out, I think Dead Alive came out in 94,
Well, it
that
was one of his first actual feature movies, I
yeah,
think.
it's his third movie, but
Yeah.
everything up until like I think King Kong or Lord of the Rings was just whichever one came first. I
Lord of the
think it
Rings
was
was really his breakout, I think.
yeah, but I think
It came first.
okay, yeah, I think up until that, all of his movies were really, really bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I think Chappie is the big budget version of all of the weird stuff that he was known
Oh
for
yeah.
doing beforehand,
Yeah.
which is a good movie, by the way.
Yeah. I've
Very
never seen Chappie.
underrated.
I've heard it was very good though.
Very underrated.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So they re-break into Lopan's headquarters. And basically this huge battle like ensues, and of course, like
it's
uh
one of the worst choreographed and looking and shot battles that I've ever seen.
but it's so
It
endearing.
remind it's like it's like a precursor to Power Rangers fighting.
You know what it kind of is? It reminds me of. It's like, remember in Wayne's World where they open up the door and he's like, "Oh, I just always wanted to open a door and see people training." Basically, what they open the door to is this battle. Like that's exactly what it
Yeah.
looks like, essentially. Um,
Wayne's
and
World 2, another movie starring James Hong.
of course, yeah. So there's the link. Um, so like this battle ensues, and we find out that Lopan has, like, I guess, consumed some of Miao Yin's blood, which allowed him to like regain his original form.
Well,
And
he drinks her he like drinks her blood after he like prods it as part after he like bloodlets her as part of his like wedding ceremony.
yeah, yeah, the wedding ceremony is like really interesting because he's got to do all these crazy things. He's got to make the women have to, like, first of all, they're hypnotized during this whole thing, so it's like not even like they're like consenting. but they have to like grab a flaming sword and hang on
What's
to it.
consent? It's ancient times.
Well, they grab a flaming sword and hang on to it.
These
But-
rituals need to be upheld.
And somehow that makes them worthy of being his wives, I guess.
Yeah, they have to ascend holding a sword and not get killed by his 2 bodyguards.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty fair requirement, I suppose.
Yeah. Well,
If you were going to marry an evil sorcerer, you would probably need to do a few things to prepare for it. You'd probably need to be one tough cookie.
Yeah.
I mean, just imagine the stress that guy's coming home with every day.
Yeah.
How was your day? Oh, I don't want to talk about it. I had to fight all these spirits trying to right me from the earth again, and then I tried to take over the world, and they tried to stop me, and now I have 3 sorcerers I have to deal with. Last night I had 1. Don't ask me about my day. That must be what it's like to be married to an evil sorcerer, I guess. I'm not entirely sure. I've never been married, nor do I plan to be married to an evil sorcerer at any point in time.
Yeah.
Perhaps if there's a past life travel device, I can go back into a past life and view and find out whether or not I've ever been married to an evil sorcerer. Or maybe I've been an evil sorcerer. And I mean, that could be. Maybe I'm on my way to becoming an evil sorcerer. I don't know how this stuff works. Do you just become a normal person and then you get a phone call and they're like, we need you to go over to this location. And then you're like, but that's in the middle of the ocean. Yes, you need to go there. But I can't afford a boat. I have to take off work for this. I don't think I have enough days. And then they're like, no, you have to go, but you can't take a boat. You have to walk there. But I can't. I can't walk on water. I'll die. No, you have to walk this specific path. And then, only then will you learn your true purpose. And it's like, but what if I don't want to learn my true purpose? You don't have a choice. Oh, okay, so I guess I'll see you at 12. And off you go, and then you're sucked into the underworld, and they tell you, you're going to be an evil sorcerer because we need you to take over the world for my army. And you're like, but I didn't want to do that. And they're like, too bad. So you're kind of stuck to it. Even though you probably could have just said no and not done it. I mean, they just tell you that this is your destiny and you have to do it. But, I mean, what would have happened if you just sat on your ass and went to work? They never say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe Lopan maybe this never had to happen.
Maybe he didn't want to kill anybody. Maybe he just wanted to make reindeer.
Maybe he did.
I don't want to destroy anyone.
I don't want to destroy anyone. I want to make reindeer.
I'll call you Ivana. It's a good reindeer name.
I will call you Ivana. You will be my wife.
And then he tries to marry the reindeer.
And they all lived happily ever after. What a boring movie that would have been.
Yeah, so the real movie, they interrupt the wedding ceremony, and this over the top like cheesy battle ensues, where Egg Shen and Lo Pan have this weird like magic duel where they like both shoot beams out, and then the beams become these warriors that have a sword fight, but like in slow motion. It's like really trippy.
It's one of the dumbest things about the movie, but I love it.
I want to like wonder how many mushrooms they did before they wrote this part of the movie, because it's just like so bizarre. So yeah, this huge battle is happening. Wang ends up killing Rain in a sword fight. Lo Pan kind of like escapes and like tries to like steal Gracie Law or steal Miao Yin. Gracie kind of like breaks the spell and is able to escape. And so Jack and Gracie go to try to save Miao Yin, and they find Lo Pan, and Jack's like, Gracie's like, you can't fight him. He's 12 feet tall and he's got magical powers. Ba ba ba. And Jack's like, don't worry, I took something. He just says, I took something.
What does that mean? What if it's just Viagra?
What if it's just fucking acid? Who knows?
It's unclear. We never see what he actually sees, so maybe maybe that's all bullshit.
They're all tripping balls right now.
Maybe Egg Shen just gave them a placebo and they're just like confident now.
Be. Yeah, could be. Maybe Egg Shen gave them those gas station penis pills. He just like crushed them up and mixed them with some Gatorade.
That's possible. We don't know what they actually experience.
No, we don't. So Jack pulls this like.
This would have been important to put in the movie.
Well, that's part of the wonder. They don't want you. You have to try to just like draw your own conclusion of what they took.
Yeah, but this isn't like what was in Marcellus Wallace's briefcase. This is far different. This is much more dire.
What was it? Egg Shen's potion bottle.
Just eggs.
Eggs. It was like 30 raw eggs.
I don't know. I mean, for God's sakes, he has a fake tour bus company called Egg Foo Young.
It's like that scene in Napoleon Dynamite where they're on the chicken farm and the guy just fucking cracks an egg into a pitcher and then pours them all a glass of just eggs. Fucking raw egg juice. Like
maybe that's what he gave them.
Maybe. Somehow, though, it does give Jack the power. Like, he basically throws the knife. Lopan catches it, says it's a nice knife, throws it back at him. Then Jack catches it and throws it back again, and somehow Lopan dies this time. Like, he just doesn't, like, I guess they couldn't have made it gone on forever where they just keep throwing the knife back to each other. So...
Well, also, his mortality was only temporary in that form.
Yes. Yeah, because he didn't actually complete the ritual. So he didn't actually break the curse. He was just like temporarily corporeal, which probably was a downside to him because it's like, with like The Mummy, the Brendan Fraser movie, The Mummy, where like, at the end of the movie, like the mummy loses his immortality and like, they're like, oh, it didn't kill him. And like, and then Evie is like, no, but he's mortal now. And then like Brendan Fraser just stabs the mummy and kills him. That's basically what happens. Like he just screws himself over.
Which I love that movie, by the way.
It's a great movie. I love that movie.
It is. It's. I feel like it still holds up. Even the special effects, even for the time, they were unfreaking believable. And even now, they're still pretty good.
They're not bad. I mean, some of the CGI looks a little shitty, like on the mummy itself, but like the big
it's really
effects,
just because technology has just gotten really advanced where you can it's more obvious now, but not at the time. At the time that looked real.
Yeah, and the sandstorm, and I remember I saw that movie when I was a kid. I was so terrified of the friggin' scarab beetles after that. I thought they were real and they were going to come after me at any time.
Oh yeah. I was worried about those.
Yeah.
I'm sure I had a nightmare that I was in a sarcophagus and they threw scarab beetles on me.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely not the first kid that probably had that dream.
No, probably not. I'm sure I had that dream too. So Jack ends up just like one-shotting Lopan. After all this build up that he's this great sorcerer, he just gets fucking wrecked. But I guess, hubris is the ultimate killer, and Lopan thinks he's all powerful, but he really isn't.
Well, I mean, we see it earlier in the movie when he's like in his he's in his corporeal form, I suppose, or his Shang Tsung form when he's when he's talking to Mao Yin and she's like talking back to him while she's in her like Snow White state, and he's like begging the gods to or the demon or whatever it is. He's like begging whatever it is that's cursed him to keep him in that form, to make him immortal and to keep him in that state because he's he'll be weak again. So his powers are getting weaker. So I'm guessing maybe he's getting into that form at this point in time. And whatever Mao Yin's blood gave him is starting to wear off.
Yeah.
Again, not again, not clear, but that doesn't really need to be.
Yeah.
The point is, Burton finally gets the best of him.
Yes.
And then he has this weird bodyguard, which it turns out that he's a demon of some kind,
Oh
or he has
after
some weird magic like on him, and he has like a
after
self-destruct button.
Thunder Thunder finds out that like Lopan is dead and just like swells up and explodes. Like he like literally, and it's like the most like, it looks like a cartoon character when they get mad and like the like steam comes out of them and they're beet red. That's basically what happens. He just like he pulls a cell and he friggin' blows up into this giant fat thing and just explodes. And that causes like the whole place to collapse. Is basically he's like the self-destruct button of Lopan's lair. So maybe that's how it was set up. Maybe like Lopan made it that way.
I guess. And I mean, and this guy's, I guess, yeah. And Thunder's the insurance policy.
Yeah, and then Lightning tries to like, I guess, attack them again. Like,
I guess all the storms are the insurance policy, but Rain never does anything. Rain doesn't try to flood the place, which you think would be a great failsafe.
Eggshen just freaking drops a Buddha statue on Lightning. Yeah. And that like insta kills him. Like, it's just like for all the buildup of these guys being like these big bads, they get wrecked in like the easiest, stupidest ways.
Yep. 80s villains, everybody.
Yeah. So they finally, they all pile into Jack's truck, which they find, and they all drive off. And I love how like they're escaping from this like collapsing thing with all these like gang members running out, and Jack still finds the time to stop at the stoplight because Gracie reminds them the light's green, you could go now.
Oh yeah, after all that, like, sure, let's take traffic laws into consideration.
Yeah, after all the laws they probably broke, breaking into a fucking like private property, like killing a bunch of like guards, even though if they were criminals, like
let alone all of the probable laws that like of the universe that they've broken, and all of the ancient laws that they've probably broken 1,000 times over. Like, I don't know. Would this transfer a curse to them?
No,
I don't know. I guess not. I don't know.
They kind of all live happily ever after. Wang and Miao Yin eventually get married. Eddie, that we meet like earlier in the movie, ends up pairing off with Margot. Eggshen decides he wants to go back to the homeland of China, and I guess Gracie and Jack like have a romantic thing going on, but like at the end, like, Gracie's like, oh, why don't we like ride off into the sunset in your truck together? And basically he's like, no. he just walks out. And like they even comment, I think Margot's like, you're not even gonna kiss her, and he's like, no, and he just walks out the door. Is like fucking stone cold.
It's the weirdest ending and the most anticlimactic.
It's funny because it's like not the Hollywood ending you would expect. So I mean, it broke expectations,
Yeah. Well, I mean, also, if you want to look at it through the lens of, well, Jack Burton is actually not the star of the movie. It's actually Wang.
Yeah. Yeah, so Wang is really the hero.
So, like, if you view it that way, which I think is the actual intention, but I'm sure they gave top billing to Kurt Russell because he's the known American actor in the market that it would probably do the best. Where I wonder if there was a Chinese release or an international release, then maybe they put Dennis Dunn in front. Maybe he was more of a leading man in other markets.
Yeah, I mean, on the poster, obviously Jack is featured the most prominently, and Gracie Law is actually the like other most prominent figure on the poster as as the female lead, which is interesting because again, she's like just like the friend, like she's the love interest of Jack, but also like the real like damsel in distress is Miao Yin, and she's not even on the poster. Or if she is, she's like very like, like in the corner somewhere where she's not prominently featured on the poster.
I'm not seeing her at all.
Yeah.
Neither is Wang.
No.
You got
So
the
it's
ball. Oh wait, no. Mao Yin is she is featured in the poster. She's next to Lo Pan, who looks like he's
okay.
taking a dump in this poster.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, she's in her royal ceremonial garb. I'm not seeing Wang anywhere. You got the truck. You got the bald guy who gets beat up pretty quickly.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the henchmen are featured more than Wang is, who's like the
Wang is
secondary
not there.
character,
Yeah,
which is
Wang
just
is not there
it's
at
strange.
all.
Yeah.
We don't even. There's not even Egg.
No.
My boy Egg is missing.
I think they were really banking on the the more well-known actors, which of course was Kurt Russell. Kim Cattrall was somewhat well-known at the time. This is one of her earlier movies before she was really popular. I mean, she really became popular because of Sex and the City, which was like
Yeah,
almost
I
like,
mean,
$15 years later.
if you see the other poster release as well, like like Lopan is not even in it. It's
Yeah.
just oh no, he is in it off to the side,
Yeah. And
and
and of course, yeah,
and I
so,
think and I think Lightning is there, and then there's Kim Cattrall, and it's just all Jack Burton.
yeah.
There's
I
no
mean, and
sign of
James
anything.
Hong was well known at the time, so I think that's why they
Yes.
kind of featured Lo Pan, especially because he's like the main bad guy. So
Well, yeah, they definitely had to feature the main bad guy, but
yeah,
it's just a surprise that the real hero of the story isn't even in it
yeah,
in the poster.
yeah,
But this, but yeah, like you said, they were probably banking for a big mainstream success, and John Carpenter, thought that was hoping that this would be a big hit and everything, and
yeah,
it just didn't work for whatever reason. It just it didn't work, and there's a couple of reasons for that. But the main thing, which was weird, um, was the Golden Child was pretty much the reason why this didn't work.
yeah,
Um, Now, John Carpenter wanted to the Golden Child had Eddie Murphy, which has a very similar plot and came
right,
out at just around the same time.
yeah.
Um, like yeah, Big Trouble in Little China were they both 86 or was one late 85? No, they were both
Both 86, I think.
86.
Yeah,
Both 86. Uh, July was Big Trouble in Little China, and December was The Golden Child. So they were within the span of a few months of each other. They both came out, and neither movie actually did well.
yeah, but the Golden Child did
The
far
Golden
more
Child did
better at the
much
box
better.
office.
The
Yeah,
Golden Child did much better. I mean, it had a budget between 12 and 24 and a half, and it made 149.4, which is kind of small potatoes in the movie world, where Big Trouble in Little China, the superior movie, did not break even at all in the
yeah,
box
it lost
office.
money.
But yeah, they were trying to compete with the Golden Child, and well, John Carpenter wanted Jack Nicholson or Clint Eastwood to play the role of Jack Burton, but both of them were
Right.
busy. But this was, but yeah, the Golden Child has a very similar plot, and it also has the same fellow Victor Wong and James Hong are both in the movie
Yeah.
as similar roles. So people might have been confused as to which movie they were going to watch at the time. They might have just there were two movies that were
Well,
way
I
too
don't know.
similar where
Well,
I don't know how you confuse that
well,
when the theatrical releases are 6 months apart, and
yeah,
also
they're pretty far
Eddie
apart.
Murphy does not look like Kurt Russell at all, and Eddie
No.
Murphy is clearly the bigger star, but the movies were too similar, so I think people were just like, well, I really only want to see one of these kinds of movies this year. And they kind of picked and chose. But also, I don't really know what Big Trouble in Little China was competing with in the box office,
Well, it was the
as
summer.
well
So
as.
Big Trouble in Little China came out in July. So there was probably like a summer, obviously summer is the big blockbuster time. And Big Trouble in Little China, while being an action movie, I would not call it a blockbuster because it's very much like the special effects aren't great. They're good for the time, but they're not like like over the top, like, you know, high budget special effects. And it is very much a cult feeling movie. Like it's not like they don't and I think that's just John Carpenter's directing style. He doesn't go for these big scenes. It's more like kind of like a subtle like build up. And I think that's probably the problem with people expecting like a big summer blockbuster. They want big action all the time. And that's just not this movie. There's a lot of, you know, dialogue in it, and, you know, a lot of like the Chinese mysticism stuff probably went over a lot of people's heads because they're like, oh, I just want to see action. Why are they talking about like Chinese mythology right now? I don't care about this, you know? And I think that was a problem with it. But like I said, you know, and when it came out on home video, it was a huge hit. And it became an instant classic. It's just sad that it didn't get the recognition at the time, and that really disillusioned John Carpenter with Hollywood. Because of like he decided to actually return to independent filming making after it. Because
here you go. Here's what it was competing with actually. July 2018, 1980, July 1986 release dates. Yeah, take a look at this. This is what he was competing with. So it came out what week? July 4th. So 4th of July weekend. This was dealing with, at the time, so what else came out that week? Under the Cherry Moon, Psycho 3, neither of those that crazy. The Great Mouse Detective, which is a great movie, and that took the lion's share that weekend, as well as About Last Night. About Last Night grossed $32 million that weekend. The total gross was $38 million, and The Great Mouse Detective's total gross was $25.3 million that weekend. And Psycho, I didn't even know they made Psycho 3. I can't imagine it was any good.
it was bad.
That was
like bad.
That was like 14.5 million, and Big Trouble was like 11. So they're really like between About Last Night, which I don't even know what that is, but I guess it made money. And The Great Mouse Detective, which I know what that is, and that made more money. So that caught the families, and About Last Night, I guess, got the couples, and Big Trouble in Little China was just one of the films that got the rest. But other movies that had already been in the box office that were only like a week or two old, you had Labyrinth, you had Karate Kid Part 2 that was a few weeks old. Ferris Bueller's Day Off came out in June, so it may have been in its last weekend.
Yeah.
Like, what else am I looking at here? There's Running Scared, which did well. Ruthless People, which was the weekend before that. And like the movies that came the week after, you got like Aliens that came out like 2 weeks later on July 18th. So
yeah,
you know, however long it stayed in the theaters, it wasn't going to be that much longer when like, because by the time Aliens came, Aliens just wrecked everything around it. Total grossing was 85 million.
Yeah.
That like you can't compete with that. So it wasn't really stacked up against a good crowd, like against anything that there wasn't anything that Big Trouble could give a run for its money.
Yeah.
Where
and I think the problem is that John Carpenter is not like the director of these big blockbusters. Like he very much his medium is the cult film. You know, if you look at his best movies, like the original Halloween, Halloween 2, The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China, Escape from New York, They Live, they're all like these very like cult classic movies that you know would not do well on like, you know, this big, you know, big budget, big, you know, blockbuster, like as like the headliner at a, you know, in a summer blockbuster movie, you know. They're very much like they find these like this little niche and they work in that niche, you know. And unfortunately, Big Trouble in Little China was actually like kind of like
Back to the Future also. I'm sorry, Back to the Future released July 3rd. How did I miss that?
Oh, well, that's another one. See, you know, it was up against so many like big hit movies that it was just impossible for it to like really, shine at the box office.
Yeah,
If
no,
it came out
it just wasn't going to happen then.
if it came out in the fall or the winter time, it probably would have done better, I would say.
Uh, Probably. I mean, the fall it would have made more sense to come out in like September, October, because
Yeah.
not that there wasn't much that was really coming out that was like destroying everything. At
Yeah.
least not from what I can see here, besides A Nightmare on Elm Street 2. But in that case, just don't release it on Halloween.
Yeah. And well, the sad thing is that a lot of like his movies after uh Big Trouble in Little China kind of became flops. Like he had a couple of hits here and there. He had like They Live and I guess I've heard good things about the Halloween reboot in 2018. Um but like, he also had, Escape from LA, which was, I'll watch Escape from LA cuz I like it, but it's not a great movie by any stretch of the imagination. It's pretty cheesy. It's basically just Escape from New York again, except now they're in LA. Like, but it's essentially almost the same exact plot.
Mhm.
And like Ghosts of Mars, which was like it was critically panned and was like a failure, massive failure at the box
Isn't that
office.
the one where John Travolta has the weird dreadlocks because he's an alien
Uh,
thing?
no, that was fucking
Oh no, that's Babylon 5,
yeah, that was
right?
some weird. No, that was some weird ass like friggin' like Scientology movie. I think
Oh
like a
god.
Battlefield Earth. I
That's
think
what
that's
it
what.
was.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
Ghosts
that
of Mars
movie's
had Ice
terrible.
Cube in it, Jason
Ah,
Statham. I never saw it, but I remember it like being very like poorly received when it came out. It was just
I've
like
I've never seen that movie, and I don't really plan to.
yeah. Um, so it's sad because
I'm trying to see what the Golden Child was up against. Ah, here we go. Three Amigos, Crimes of the Heart, Heartbreak Ridge, Dead Time Stories. I don't even know what that is. Star Trek 4. Yeah, a bunch of movies that I've really. Oh God, I forgot that there was a Song of the South 1986 re-release that was a terrible idea. Um, yeah, there wasn't really a whole lot that it was going up. Oh, Platoon. There you go. The next week
oh
was Platoon. So the Golden Child pretty much made all of its money that first weekend because there was nothing up against it
yeah,
that first weekend, and then the weekend after Platoon came and wrecked everything.
yeah,
And then Little Shop of Horrors and Lady and the Tramp were there just to like pick up just to pick up the people who weren't going to go see Platoon, which were just the families coming in and like so. But Platoon like rocked the box office that weekend with 138 million. So the Golden Child probably would have done a lot better if it just didn't have Platoon to compete against.
yeah,
But it did. It made its money the first weekend pretty much. So at least there was that.
yeah. It's it sucks because Big Trouble in Little China is a great movie. It's like it is
It is.
cheesy, but it doesn't take itself seriously, and it knows that what it is, and it doesn't try to be anything different. You know, yeah, like the dialogue can be cheesy at times. The acting is not great, but it's kind of like purposely like that. It's kind of purposely overacted because it's like,
Yeah, like I like the hamminess of it.
yeah, exactly. It's campy almost. Like it's silly and like Kim Cattrall is basically like she's there as like the exposition person. Like all she does is like explain everything. Like, but it's kind of
Yeah,
like it's supposed to be like that because she's like this like lawyer and like kind of like a busybody and like a know-it-all. So like that's like
she's also one of the
it
few
her
people
character.
that like she's also one of the few people that the triads know of too because they know why she's at the airport and they know
Yes,
like they need to get around her somehow
yes,
or just find a way to get rid of her.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, it doesn't pretend to be this great movie, but it is because it's like it doesn't take itself too seriously and it's a fun movie. Like the characters are fun, like the special effects are what they are. Like yeah, some of them look kind of cheesy, like the the wild man or whatever, like the Sasquatch that attacks. It's clearly just a
Which, by
guy in
the
a
way,
gorilla suit.
he comes back and they set it up for a sequel at the very end of the
Yes.
movie. He's like
Yeah, he's like
attached to the
stowing
truck.
away on the truck as Jack kind of drives away into the darkness. You know,
So
the camera pans and you see the monster like stowing away on the back of the truck.
don't you hear the monster screaming at the
Yeah,
end? So like, I wonder. So like, does he die?
I don't know.
Like, does the monster kill him, or does he
Well,
kill the monster?
so
Like,
speaking of a
is that
sequel,
is that the sound of the monster screaming because Jack found him and killed him, or is that the monster screaming and like, is it agony or victory? The yell.
I don't
It's
know. Well,
we never got a sequel, so
allegedly there is a sequel in development. Initially, there was a report that The Rock was developing a remake and he was going to star as Jack Burton.
yeah, that I
However,
saw. It was like 2015, and it
yes,
just like for
but that
whatever
got
reason it fell
shelved.
apart.
Yeah, it got
Which
shelved, and I
which
guess
I'm
they had
okay
asked.
with it. I don't think they needed to remake this movie.
No, they didn't, and I'm glad they didn't because it would have been like just like a stupid CGI bullshit, which is not what this movie is about. And John Carpenter even said, like, you know, whatever is happening, it was a very early process, and he hadn't even spoken to The Rock at that point. And he said he's ambivalent about a remake, so he's not like really for it, but or not against it. You know, it's kind of like if something comes up that's good, then great. If not, then let it, you know, let sleeping dogs lie. But allegedly, in 2018, they were apparently saying that there was going to be a sequel. It would be a continuation of the previous film with Kurt Russell, you know, reprising his role as Jack Burton. So, you know, obviously, you know, I haven't heard anything since then. That's
I could
going
see
on
it
now.
getting picked up by Netflix or like one of the streaming service companies that like
Right.
desperately needs people to
Well,
subscribe.
this was also 5 years ago, so who the hell knows if it's even in development anymore? You know,
I would be
between
very surprised. I mean, with the writer's strike and everything that like,
writer's
well, the
strike is
strike just,
over, so
yes, it just ended, but like, who knows? I mean, they might be like looking for projects to dig up too.
but between COVID also, like, who knows if it.
I mean, that's true. They could have just like put it to bed after COVID when like
Yeah,
they were cutting budgets.
yeah.
And I don't whose hand like do we know whose hands it was in at the time?
No.
Okay, because that could be a thing too. Like, let's just say, for
Seven Bucks
example,
Productions president. So I don't know what
oh,
Seven
that's the
Bucks.
Rocks. That's the Rocks
Oh,
production
okay.
company.
Okay. So allegedly they clarified it was going to be a sequel, but again, who knows what's happening with it? You know,
Who knows if it's happening?
exactly. I mean, The Rock is back on WWE now, so because I guess he got sick of not working, so he went back to wrestling television, but you know, who knows? You know, it would be interesting to see a sequel. I don't think it really needs to have a sequel. I think it ended fine, and I don't, you know, if they even be able to get most of the original cast. I mean, you know, I guess Kim Cattrall is still around, but Victor Wong passed away. Interestingly enough, he passed away September 12th, 2001.
Oh wow!
So, yeah.
I don't know.
Apparently, he actually had a heart attack because of the news, because I guess his sons lived in New York City, and
Oh my
he
gosh!
had been watching the news all night to see what was going on. So he, you know, I guess, you know, you could say he's also a victim of 9/11.
Yeah. Wow, that's too bad.
Yeah.
Well, I hope his sons were okay.
Yeah, I would imagine they are. I mean, I don't know,
I
but
would like, yeah, I would like to know if they are, but I also, well, I would like to imagine that they are. I don't want to know because I don't want to feel, I don't want to get sad if they're not.
yeah. James Hong is still alive at
Yes.
94. I don't know if he
Yes.
still acts anymore because he's
Yeah,
elderly
no,
now.
dude, dude, he's in Everything Everywhere All at Once. He's
Oh, okay.
great.
All right.
Yeah.
So then he still
You didn't
acts.
see that?
No.
Oh my God, you got to see that movie.
Yeah.
It's great. I will say the second time it's like it's not as good because the movie is filled with surprises and
Yeah.
once you know certain things are coming, it's like it takes away from the surprise. It takes away from it. But the first time that you see that movie, you're like blown away by everything that's going
Yeah.
on. The title is the appropriate way to describe that movie. But yeah, James Hong gave a whole speech and everything because he finally
Wow.
got like some kind of. I think he. I don't know if he got I don't know if he got an Academy Award, but the movie got a ton of Academy Awards, and they let him do the big speech
Yeah.
when they got Best Picture, I believe.
All right. Well, there you go. He's still,
Yeah,
but
James Hong
well,
is
I
still
mean,
man.
would they be able to like bring him back as Lopan? Is Lopan like dead for good, or is he going to
Um,
be the bad guy in two? Who knows?
I think they should leave Lopan dead for good, or
Yeah.
maybe they could like, or maybe if they wanted to do something with him, he could still be bound to his like corporeal form where he can't really do anything physically, and he can't like he's just stuck in the spirit realm, and
Yeah.
like I like he's more of like almost in like a Zordon role where like you really just see like his floating head or something
Yeah.
like that, or
Maybe he's
you know
grooming the
like
next like Lopan to be the big bad or something. Who knows?
I think that could work where like he could transfer his or like he could transfer his essence into someone else, and
Yeah.
they could have a younger actor who could do the things that he can't right now at this
Yeah.
age, and he could still provide the voice, and
Yeah.
they could do whatever they're able to do with his body. I think that would be okay if they did something like that.
Yeah.
And also that would fit with the lore and just like how like ghosts and demonic possessions and old grudges that spirits have that don't cross over. Like that fits. That could happen.
Yeah. Well, it would be interesting. I don't know if I would. I don't know. I don't know what I would
I don't
feel
know how
about it.
I'd feel about it.
If it wasn't too like over the top Hollywood and there wasn't too much CGI that used a lot of practical effects, I think I would watch it.
Yeah, I'd be curious for
But
sure.
it's seeing as it's the Rock's production company, I feel like it would be too much CGI and
It would
action, and
be. You know, they'd spend
it
too
would kind
much
of
money on this.
it would forget the essence of the actual the original movie. So
Yeah, I think they'd spend more money than they need to on it,
yeah,
and that would like ironically cheapen it. But that happens with many movies. They pump in so much money that it cheapens the film, even though the film is not cheap.
yeah, yeah. But anyway, overall, great movie. If you haven't seen it yet, I recommend it. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. I used to watch it whenever it was on TV, like when I actually had TV before I unplugged. Uh, I would watch it. Like, if it was on HBO or whatever, I would just, oh look, Big Trouble in Little China's on. Let me put it on, and it was just like great, like fun movie to just sit down and watch. I
Yes,
actually have a Lopan pop figure also. It's one of my favorite pop figures.
nice.
Yeah.
I I think that's the first time that I had really like known where that was from because like when I saw that you had that figure, I didn't know who it was, and you wrote a song that like we had planned to do on the second album that never
Yes.
happened.
Yeah, we did. I did write a
And
song about Chris.
it would have been a great song.
Yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
I
no,
had
I
written a song about
remember
him.
it. The Gracie Law song.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the pop, and I was like, "Who's Lopan?" And you were like, "You never saw Big Trouble in Little China?" And I was like,
Yeah.
I knew him from something, and I couldn't put my finger on it because I had never seen the movie all the way through. I had seen bits and pieces
Well, you
when
know
I
what's
was a
funny?
kid, and
Y-
like just for this show, I watched Big Trouble in Little China all the way through the other day, and the thing that stuck with me the most was that the plot was so simple where you could pick it up at any point in time and know exactly what was going on. You wouldn't have to ask any questions really. You could just like you would know within I don't know a minute or two as to what's going on. You could pick up the gist of it, and you could just watch the movie just fine. And
Yeah.
that's my favorite part is that it's just such simple storytelling that like that's what I think makes it hold up the most is that the
Yes.
story is so simple.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very just like classic hero's journey story. basically.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I had a similar moment with Lopan too, because I don't remember if you back in the days of Newgrounds, when everyone, it would be like popular, like anybody who doesn't know, Newgrounds was like a Flash like animation slash game website where everything was made with like Flash Player, and it was like animations and like a lot of like popular animators that are like big today, like Ego Raptor, who's one of the Game Grumps. Like they all started out on Newgrounds in the early 2000s, and one of the most famous Newgrounds like shorts was the Ultimate Showdown of Ultimate Destiny by Lemon Demon. And it was like a little song where basically like all these like pop culture figures have this giant like Super
Do
Smash
remember
Brothers
this.
esque battle, and one of the like fighters in the battle is Lopan. So, and like I had like heard this song before I had seen the movie Big Trouble in Little China, and like didn't know who Lopan was, and then eventually saw the movie. I'm like, oh shit, there he is. Like,
Yeah,
so
no, there's a ton of influences this has come, but also like Big Trouble in Little China, there's a board game which I've never seen or played, obviously.
yeah,
I would like to play this board game. There's also a card game for some reason. I have no idea. It's like a deck building game. I have no idea if this is any good, but like your hero deck has to beat the villain deck. I if you've played either of these, let us know. Are they any good? Are they fun? Do they suck? I don't know. But
yeah,
yeah, let us know about that.
yeah,
But yeah, you've got a ton of people by this, like that have just been influenced by this. So like the Iron Man villain, the Mandarin, like in his 90s run, he was based on like Lopan in like one of his appearances.
yeah,
We already spoke about Mortal Kombat,
yeah,
but there's like Ninja Turtles episodes that reference Big Trouble in Little China, and they like changed the bad guy Lopan to Ho Chan. And the store and like rain the rain storm guy is replaced by Wind, but James Hong is Ho Chan in that episode. It's called A Chinatown Ghost Story. Um, there's songs that have like referenced this. There's like plenty of that's these songs actually do exist, but like there's also like the film influenced Thor Ragnarok, which is pretty
yes,
cool.
yeah,
And also like there's there's a band called Lopan
yeah,
from from Ohio.
yeah,
I've never checked them out, so I don't know. But yeah, for what it's worth, their bass player's name is Scott with a K. So yeah.
yeah,
But we'll have to check it out. I'll have to check this out. They have some interesting things going on. But thankfully, the debut album is self-titled, which it should be. So I'll have to check it out.
yeah,
But yeah, this is just it's such a fun movie to watch and it still holds up. And I think the cheesier that it looks now because of technology, the more cherished and the better it is. Like the cheesier it appears to be, the better it ages. I don't know. There's something about it that's just it's just mad. It's just magical in that weird '80s way.
yeah, yes, exactly. It's one of those classic like 80s like cheesy like just it's just a fun movie, it's like one of those like it's super nostalgic. Every time you watch it, it's like, wow, I love this movie. Like, I just want to. It just like reminds me of like better days. Kind of like just I don't know.
Hmm.
It's just and it's cool because it has like yeah, it takes place in like modern times, but it has this whole like mysticism thing, and it goes into like Chinese mythology and stuff, and it's like an adventure movie, even though it takes place in Chinatown in San Francisco.
Yeah. If you've ever been to San Francisco, their Chinatown is even if you're in San Francisco for only a few hours, you should go to Chinatown.
Yeah.
It is really, really, really cool.
It's
That's
probably
really
like
I was
aside from New York City's Chinatown, I would say it's probably the most famous Chinatown in the world.
oh yeah.
Um,
I mean New York City's Chinatown is pretty cool, but
yeah.
like there's a few really great dim sum spots around there. You could eat some chocolate covered scorpion if you go to the right vendor. But San Francisco's Chinatown, it's just so cool, and they have all of these really sweet murals as you keep going, and the way because San Francisco is like very hilly,
Yeah.
there's some kind of like I don't know, you just got to do it. There's some kind of really cool adventure element that gets brought in by the hills because you're just
Yeah.
like, oh man, what's up there? It's like
Yeah.
there's a mountain everywhere. There's a mountain, and it's like I'm on this cool journey, and you're seeing all of these like a lot of the architecture is like it's supposed to be like reminiscent of like ancient China. So you're really excited to do it, and then you see the really cool street art, and then you see all the murals and a bunch of Bruce Lee stuff everywhere, and then
Yeah.
dragons everywhere, and like it's just so cool. Like I took a picture of like every mural that I could find when I went there, and I was
Yeah.
only in there for a few hours. But the only thing that I wanted to do, like I was there for a work thing for a convention for like it was like a investment conference, and I was like it like Chinatown was walking distance um from the conference, so I went down there and I had a lot of fun just walking up and down Chinatown and eating Chinese food, the most simple thing that you could do, but I had a great freaking time because
Yeah.
it was just so different and it had such a cool vibe to it.
Yeah. And I
But
just
yeah,
want to say,
that's a cheap way to have fun in San Francisco, ladies and germs.
I want to I just wanted to say one more thing about like the movie too, is that it kind of like, in today's modern time where everyone's like trying to be like culturally like, oh, we have to have representation in film and blah blah blah, whatever, blah blah. Like this is the kind of movie that does that. Like it's not
Yes.
like it's representing like Chinese culture very well and in a very dignified way, but also like is not shoving it down your throat like in like a kind of like diversity. Oh, we have to do this because it's diversity way. Like it's very much like this is like, oh, here's these cool like myths about China and like cool like Chinese mythology, and also it's an action movie, and most of the characters are played by Chinese actors, so it's like it's like this is like how you do it. Like Hollywood
Yeah.
could take a fucking page out of this and like actually do a movie properly that's like culturally relevant to like another culture, and also not like just like tokenized, because it's like
Well,
everything they do nowadays.
that's because they're happier pretending that this was that something like this doesn't exist and can't exist and
Right.
it's never been done before and they have to be the saviors.
Yeah.
So the only way that they do it now, that's what you should pay attention to and not how it was done properly in the past
Yeah.
where people were just being thoughtful.
Yeah.
Like there's a difference between shoehorning and being thoughtful, and right now it's so much shoehorning where
Yes.
like you'll see something and you're like, did they really need to put that in there? Like this has nothing to do with anything. It's just kind of there. And if you watch like Big Trouble in Little China, it all makes sense.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So they
Or
could
like
really.
there'd be like a weird like you watch something now and there'd be like a side plot that extends the movie by 20 minutes that has nothing to do with the outcome of the movie.
Yes.
That's just there just because they're trying to force diversity into something
Yes.
where you go back and you watch how it's done properly and it's all there. It all makes sense. The movie is 90 minutes and not 2.5 hours. The movie
Yeah.
is like, it's digestible. They're
Yes.
not trying to throw a million things into it. And I'm not even
Right.
talking about the diversity thing anymore. I'm just saying, in general, they're
Yes.
not trying to throw a bajillion things into this movie because they have a bigger budget, so they have to justify that budget.
Yes.
And extend the movie by another 40 minutes to show off more special effects.
No, yeah, it has a
Like,
good flow to it, and it like just it works. It like it doesn't like overstay its welcome. It
yes.
ties up nicely at the end, and that's it. Like there's really there's you can't really say any more about it. It's just it's a great little movie.
Yeah. It's a big little movie.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think that just
it's
about does it. But thank you all so very, very much for stopping by, checking out the podcast, and if you're a returning visitor, then thanks for doing your part and coming back. We really appreciate each and every one of you. Um, just give us some money so that we can retire early. Or if you don't want to give us money, then do it for Tony. He's got 5 million children and he gets around. And, well, just like Big Daddy Dudley, Tony. Tony enjoys spreading his seed around the Hudson Valley. So there's plenty of little old ladies and young ladies to, well, Tony's planted some flags and he needs your help for the alimony and the child support. So he's writing these articles in hopes that he can make it big. And you can do that by giving us money at patreon.com/whydoesthisexist, and we will give that to Tony so that he can pay his child support. It's not that he doesn't want to, it's that he simply can't right now. For example, take Ric Flair. The man has been divorced so many times that he has to keep working. I'm not sure if he wants to. He might tell you he wants to, but he has no choice. That's a lot of alimony. Don't let Tony turn into Ric Flair.
yeah.
But thank you all very much. We appreciate you. And just tell more people about the show. That way we can get more eyeballs. And then if you don't give us money, maybe they will. And that's the way the cookie crumbles. We're also cursed by a demon where we have to marry and sacrifice someone with green eyes. And Robin, it's either that or we just give them a big sack of money. That's really what's going on. They want green, and there's only two ways to do it. And we'd really, we don't want to destroy. We just want to make reindeer.
Yeah.
So that's been Why Does This Exist? I've been Chris.
And I've been Rob.
And remember, question everything.
And don't forget, you should really shake the pillars of heaven.